So I remember when I was 2 days after my due date with our first, and luckily my OB for our first was a former client, so I was really close with her. And I was starting to get concerned because I wasn't feeling movement as much with her. And I went into my OB's office, which conveniently was across the street from our hospital. And we tested my amniotic fluid, and I was starting to lose amniotic fluid. So she had suggested that we induce that day. Having never been in labor before, I had no idea what I was in for. So we went across the street. I called my husband, let him know that I was being induced. He was at work, and I could just hear the panic come across his voice. Um, and so I just told him, I was like, I need you to go home, get the bag, and then just meet me at the hospital. And we get there, and they get us into our room, and they start the Pitocin. And I remember laying there, and the nurse was super sweet that came in at first. Obviously, I was nervous. I have never been in labor before. I've never really been in a hospital bed before, for anything. And she starts the Pitocin, and I do not do well with needles. I cannot stand IVs. And I remember I was starting to get really nauseous about the IV in my arm. And she was like, "Oh, honey," she's like, "this is going to be the least of your concerns when we get going." So she started the IV, and the whole time I was just so annoyed by having this IV in my arm in the room. And my mom's in there, and my husband was still nervously rushing around trying to get stuff to our house. And they came in and they start to talk to you about your birth plan and what you wanted. And I was never really a person to like structure out this perfectly detailed plan, because I was told several times to just not be so attached and just let things kind of flow as they need to when you're there. And I really intended on doing that, but I told the nurse, I said, "Listen, I would really prefer a natural birth." I was 8, 9 years into the fitness field at this point, I into the wellness side, and I fully understood what implications could be. And I already had hypothyroid, so I already had things kind of going against me. I just did not want anything else that could make the process tougher. So I just said, I want my body to do what it naturally needs to do. I would really prefer to not have an epidural. And I remember the nurse saying to me, she was like, "Well, there's no brownie points for the moms that don't get an epidural and the ones that do." And I was so stunned that I didn't even reply, because I didn't even know what to say back to her. And I was in there with my mom, who had had two natural births, and my husband had finally arrived at this point. And I just said to them both, I said, "Listen, I really don't want the epidural." I said, "So please don't try to talk me into this as we're going through this." Um, and the labor started progressing, the Pitocin started kicking in, and the labor pains were intense. And I remember just laying in the room feeling like everyone was just kind of watching me the whole time. And I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't really getting any guidance. I was just kind of trying to guess, is this how I'm supposed to feel? Is this how it's supposed to be progressing? This is starting to hurt really bad. I don't know if this is how it's supposed to go. So the nurse came in, and I told her I was getting really intense pains in my back. And she suggested that we get up and go walk. So we started walking around. I could barely even walk down the hallway without the intense pain. So I started sitting on like stability ball and just trying to get the pain away that way, laying on my side. And as things were starting to progress, I remember like intense shaking coming in, and I could barely breathe. Um, and I remember a specific moment where I realized I was like doing this on my own, no matter how many people were in there. My mom and my husband were sitting next to each other in the room, and somebody opened up my delivery room door at the same time that another mom across the hall was pushing, and her delivery room door was open, and she was screaming bloody murder. And I looked at my husband and my mom, and I started getting tears in my eyes, and I was like, "Did anybody hear that?" And they both would not make eye contact with me. They looked forward, and they were like, "No, we have no idea what you're talking about." And I just remember in that moment getting complete fear. And I was like, I can't get out of this. Like, there is no way for me to go back. I've got to go through this, and I'm here, and I've got to do this on my own. Nobody else is going to be able to take this away from me. And I really needed at that moment, now that I look back on it, I needed somebody during that time to just remind me, like, you've got this, your body knows how to do it. You're good. You don't need to be scared. But instead, I felt like I just kept getting what everybody thought was, obviously probably well-intentioned, um, just kind of like ignored and just like quieting out what could be happening and what my body was going to go through, to the point that as the labor started progressing more and more, it started to really hurt. If you've ever been induced and you've also not been induced, you know the difference in the pains, and it was extreme. And I remember I was at like hour 12 at this point, and the nurse came in, and I finally was just breaking down, and she looked at me and she was like, "Are you ready for the epidural now?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess we'll take it," because I wasn't really progressing. So I got the epidural, everything progressed fine, labor went fine, baby came great, everything was good. But I just regretted it so much. And I looked back and I was like, God, I wish I would have just stuck with what I wanted. Or if I knew this now, or if I knew that I could have gone through this on my own now. And the whole time I was just so frustrated because I just wanted somebody to tell me, like, your body knows what it needs to do. You can do this on your own. We're here to support you, versus just trying to encourage me to take the faster route.
I'm like literally sitting here writing down, I'm doing this on my own. Like, that's so stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Like that moment when you were like, I am alone. I'm by myself. Like, all of these people around me that I feel are supposed to be supports, I truly feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
It was also interesting when you were saying, I just needed somebody. I needed somebody to remind me that my body knows what it's doing.
Yeah, I felt like I had so many people kind of projecting their own stuff of like how they thought I should labor and deliver, and how they thought the process was supposed to go. And not really taking back, like, you know what, she knows what she's doing. Maybe, like, why don't we trust what she wants? Why don't we trust what she feels is right for her body and what she wants to do? Just the, like, telling me that there wasn't any brownie points. Now I look back at it, I'm like, I wasn't looking for any brownie points, right? I wasn't looking to brag that I had a natural childbirth.
Yeah.
I really more so just wanted to just be in tune with my body. I remember pushing my daughter out, and I didn't feel a thing. Everybody had to tell me when to push and when things were coming. And I was so frustrated with the process because I really wanted to be in tune with when I needed to push and when things were happening. And I felt so disconnected to my body when I was there.
I can very much resonate with this with my first, because very similar situation where I was like, I think this is what I want. And then, if you have, especially with when this is a new experience,
Yes.
And you're like, I've never been here before. It's not like I can advocate for myself because I've been in this situation before. And you're giving that power away to people that you're like, okay, you're more educated than me in this, or you've done this many, many times. So let's fast forward a little bit, because I feel like there's seeds, and we're going to definitely talk about the work that you do with women, because you definitely help women trust their bodies and get back into their bodies. But let's talk about, like, it sounds like those seeds of, you talk a lot about like postpartum rage.
Yeah.
And how it just sounds like these tiny seeds were being planted, like your husband being there, observing. And I love men so much. I'm like, I love you to pieces. And I'm starting to see this facade that we put out there, the stories we tell ourselves about who men need to be.
Yeah.
And then when we get them in these vulnerable positions, we actually realize that they want to support us. They want to love us deeply. They want to be the providers, but they don't have the emotional intelligence skills. because they were never taught, right? So you have this moment of like, oh crap, like watching that panic in your husband. And then can you just like bring us to, post baby and how you were feeling with that regarding the postpartum rage?
Yeah, before it's funny you say that because I remember when I was pushing, he was trying to breathe with me and he was like breathing in my face, and I was like, "Get out of my face! Like I
Aw.
do not hear this." Um, After we had her though, we spent a couple days in the hospital, and she came out at like 2 a.m. So we were exhausted. And I just felt like you're delirious. I woke up and I felt like I got hit by a truck. And you just don't realize how much your body goes through when you're there until that epidural wears off and you feel that pain. And the nurses were amazing. One nurse came in because she looked at us and she was like, "You guys look like hell. Like, I'm going to take the baby for a couple hours. You guys sleep for a little bit." And I I mean, swaddling the baby, little things like all this stuff. I was like, God, we're looking to all these other people for how we do this stuff so much. And I remember when we were going home, I looked at my husband when we were in the car and I was like, we're doing this. Like they're letting us go home with a baby. Like we have a human. And we got home and everybody talks about the baby blues and postpartum stages, and I could feel myself like getting emotional and just crying over random things. My husband only had a few days home with us, so when he went back to work, I was on my own with her. And I remember calling him just sobbing. And I was like, I can't even brush my teeth. I haven't been able to do anything. Like, I don't feel like myself. My belly is a deflated balloon. I'm living in clothes that have spit up and stuff all over them. I feel disgusting. And I don't even know what to like. I just need support because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I was trying to figure out breastfeeding, and it was just everything was so difficult, and I could feel myself just emotional and anxious over every little thing. And in the very beginning everyone just says that that's how it is, and then it starts to go away. So I didn't really do much about it. We had some postpartum support, and we moved about 8 weeks when she was about 8 weeks old back to Michigan. And I still never felt that anxiety go away. And it was just kind of low key for many times, not things that were so severe, but things that I didn't talk about because nobody was talking about it. I didn't know that it was normal, or not normal, but common to be experiencing it. I thought that I might be like going a little crazy with what I was experiencing, and I didn't want to say anything. I would be walking with our daughter in a stroller and having like vivid visions of like if something happened, like what if the stroller just rolled down the hill, what would happen? And I would be driving and thinking like, oh my gosh, what if that car just hit us right now? What would happen with her in the back seat? And we'd be sleeping at night. She had this little like monitor that we used to monitor her heart rate and oxygen. And it was supposed to help my peace of mind, but I would check it 5 times before I could actually fall asleep at night, to the point that I didn't even trust myself checking it to see what I saw. I had to ask my husband to double check it and tell me that everything was okay before I could go to sleep. Um, and I just started noticing little moments like that where I was having this anxiety. And in the same time, I was feeling all these opinions of I'm in, Facebook moms groups and different things. And everybody has these opinions of how you're supposed to do things. And watching moms like attack each other via Facebook for, not agreeing on something. And I just felt like I was so out of control. Like I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing, what was right, what was wrong. Every decision I needed to make, I felt anxious about. And it was about like 7, 8 months postpartum. I could feel it starting to manifest into different things, like different fears, different stresses throughout our time. And I was starting to get resentful with my husband because I started to feel myself carrying these fears, but he wasn't having these fears. So I started to feel like it wasn't fair. Like, why am I the one who's always worrying about these things, but you're not worried about it? And I started to get really resentful about that. And it started to turn into like me getting really angry with him over things that might be a natural like disagreement, but it turned into a bigger argument than it needed to because I would become so upset about the situation that I remember sitting in our kitchen once and I was drinking coffee, which should not have been drinking caffeine at this point because it was making it worse. But he said something and I could just feel like my blood boiling. I could feel myself enraged.
Yeah.
And I remember just yelling at him. And in that moment, I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, you should not be reacting this way. That's not fair at all. And I could just see him, like when I was reacting this way, he was like, I don't know what to do. He would just kind of passively respond and just like go to the opposite and just be like, okay, what do you need from me? Like, what can I do? Because I don't think he really understood what I was going through. I had no idea what I was going through. I didn't really know how to talk about it. I felt embarrassed about it. And I started to tell him, I feel like I'm having postpartum anxiety or like a postpartum depression.
Mhm.
And still, he had no idea how to support. He was just as sweet as he usually is. And he was just like, okay, well, what do you need from me or how can I help? And he was great too. I was thinking about it. I was like, God, he changed diapers. He got up with her in the middle of the night. He did a lot of different things too. I still was experiencing all of that. And I had the support of my husband there helping me out.
Mhm. I find it interesting that it's the it's almost like, I mean, when we become a parent for the first time, however, people become parents because they do, not everybody gives birth, and you are becoming at the same time. And nobody talks about that, right? Because it's so child focused, which is kind of interesting because that's how the culture is. Like parenting is so child focused. It's always about the child's behavior and who you need to become for the child. We've swung to the other side where before it was like children are seen and not heard. And now it's like children need to be seen all the time. They need to be heard all the time. And then we neglect ourselves. But it almost sounds like, I mean, you both were in this state of like postpartum.
Yep.
Except, there's actually, I believe, less resources for men than there are for women postpartum. Mm-hmm. And there's not very many resources for women postpartum. So just, the gender roles and expectations, and then the societal expectations when it comes to mental health are severely lacking. And then when we do seek support, it's typically in traditional ways. And then it just, here's a diagnosis, here's medication, here's this, go talk about your problems. And you're like, I got to get some sleep. Like I'm so out of it right now. So let's fast forward, Brooke, to the work that you're doing now. Obviously it's been, your daughter's 4 years old.
Yeah.
So that's 4 years ago. I feel like a lot has changed for you in 4 years.
Dramatically, yes.
Yeah, a lot has changed and a lot can happen in 4 years. And now you have your son who's 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, he's 18 months now.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun stage.
It's a chaotic stage.
I always see your Instagram and they're like, he's getting into this again. He's getting into that again. I'm like, yes, boys are like, yeah, it's like they just need to swing from the ceilings. Like it's just.
I always joke with my husband. I'm like, our daughter was a piece of cake, just the easiest kid. And then we had him and we looked at each other and I was like, holy crap, what just happened?
Yeah.
He's so fun though.
So tell me about who you are now, or how even those seeds 4 years ago of that postpartum rage, because you and I always like rant on patriarchy and female gender roles and expectations. It doesn't go away. It's not just that little season in your life. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. When did you decide to start your own business and help women do this? Tell us about that journey as well and how that started unfolding for you. And then we'll talk about, because I know you and I are both very passionate about, helping women see like this isn't necessarily a you issue. This is a cultural issue.
Yeah. I remember when I was I realized I was experiencing postpartum anxiety, I started to like look for different ways to go through it and like why it could be happening. And knowing what I knew that a lot of it was probably hormonal. So I was like, how do I work through this with my hormones? And what do I need to do? And I didn't find anything. I could not find much support at all. And a lot of it was, postpartum, take your birth control or this or that. And I was like, well, I mean, that's cool, but I've got other ways I can use birth control too. I don't want to take synthetic hormone. And I was seeing memes constantly from moms of like, oh, it's 1 o'clock, or this is just motherhood, and just like constantly like making fun of the exhaustion. And I remember saying to my husband, I was like, I don't find these funny. I was like, it's not, I was like, it actually like makes me really angry. I was like, this is motherhood. Like, this is just what we're accepting, is that we're going to be exhausted all the time and be angry and resentful and just like truly not enjoy. I was like, this is not the experience that I envisioned. I envisioned joy, and I envisioned like just truly like embracing these moments. And it's always been in my nature to question everything. So I was just questioning it a lot. I was like, this is not normal. And then I would see the memes of like, well, my husband's like the next child. You don't realize that you're giving birth to two. And I was like, well, that pisses me off too, because he's also an adult and he's a 50% parent. So why is it that I have to raise two adults? That's not fair. Or, two children.
Mhm.
Um, and there was a lot of questions getting directed at me that were never getting directed at my husband. Around 7 or 8 months, when I had been researching things, I decided to leave the company that I was with because I couldn't even focus on an email or anything. And I was like, you know what, I need to shift what I'm doing. And through experiences of, okay, losing the postpartum weight, realizing there wasn't anything there to support women postpartum, and embracing what was going on there, I was just seeing all these different pockets where there was no support for women in truly understanding how your body was functioning. So I decided I was going to do it a little differently. And I left. And when I originally started my business, it was to support moms. And it was just to support women who had just had a child. Because through that, around 9, 10 months, I started shifting the way I treated myself with nutrition. And I started shifting the way I approached just my body in general. I remember for years, very much like the experience in labor, I was just relying on other people to tell me what my body needed to do. I wasn't truly tuning in. I could not tell you a time that I felt in touch with my body, and it really bothered me. And I ditched tracking my food for a while. I really started to just tune into how my body was feeling. And I actually, through that process, got leaner than I had ever been, because I just tuned into my body, and all these things that I had felt like I had been fighting my body for years before having my daughter, I started to feel and achieve, because I was kind of letting go of trying to have everybody else tell me how to do it. And I was trusting what I needed. And I said to my husband, I was like, I don't want my daughter to have that kind of experience with herself, with her body, and just seeing that the way that I felt for so many years. I want that to be different. And I thought, like, you know what, moms weren't supported. I said, but when I felt the most supported, I actually was a better mom to her because of it. I was able to be more present with her. So I said, I want to be able to support moms. And a lot of what I started in the beginning was, when you support the mom, you support the child.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's where I really took my business. But I started to also see that, okay, but if I support women before they even become a mom, then this could totally shift the narrative on just how we treat this in the future. And we could change the narrative on how we approach our body, how we approach our health, our nutrition, how we work out, all of those things. So now when I work with women, my business has evolved to really centering, I talk hormones a lot because I know how they can make you feel in your body. But I talk more on the things that you can do on your daily basis regarding your nutrition, regarding your movements, and the lifestyle practices and the habits that you have. And the other aspect of that is the support that you need and the boundaries that you need to truly feel your best. Because what I find after 14 years and through personal experiences is, when people are telling me like, oh, I want to weigh 150 pounds, they're not looking for 150 pounds. They're looking for feeling their best in their skin. They're looking for feeling in control of their choices. They're looking for trusting their body again. They're looking for not hating their body every month when they're having PMS. So I knew that that was possible because I experienced it for myself. So I've started to shift a lot of my coaching to the practices and things that we need for that to happen for us, whether you're a mom or not, so that you can change the narrative on the way that you approach your body.
Yeah, I love this. And it's interesting how, whether we're talking about the body or we're talking about business or we're talking about parenting or another relationship, I believe that if we as humans knew what the journey was going to look like or how to get there or hold ourselves accountable or be able to push through the mental blocks and subconscious or all the things that get in our way from our goals, we would do that.
Yeah.
Like we would do that. And I hear it from people all the time. They're like, I know what I need to do. I'm just not doing it. And I'm like, listen, it's not about knowing what you need to do and just sucking it up and doing it, because what's your plan? We wouldn't be having a conversation if it was as easy as that, right? If it was as emotionally comfortable. But the thing that gets me is surrendering to the journey.
Yeah.
Because there's an expectation, there's a mental expectation that when I reach this goal, this weight, then I will, right? Then I will feel this way. When I make this amount of money, then I will feel. When my children are back in school, then I will feel. When the pandemic is over, then I will feel. And it's like, that's not true. There's no evidence of that. Because one, that's in the future. You're predicting the future. You're not being present and looking your past the last time you told yourself that. You get to that goal weight because you binged, you restricted, you did something, and your body is so unhealthy. And it's like going into fight or flight mode, like survival state. And you're like, I feel like shit, but I hit my weight.
Yep.
Like, because you're not healthy. And so it's about surrendering to that. And there is so much unlearning that culture has done to us when it comes to food, when it comes to movement, when it comes to any area of our life. Where do you find women get really hung up when it comes to changing the way, changing the brain, changing how the body functions, and surrendering to the journey?
It's funny too. I mean, so I'm 35. A lot of women in their 30s and 40s, maybe early 50s are the women that I work with. And we all grew up in what I call like snack walls generation, right? Where it was like constant diet culture, where Metabolife and the diet pills were rampant at that stage. And I just remember growing up and watching my mom, and not to knock her, she was amazing, but it was always a struggle with her weight. It was, if she wanted to feel good in her skin, she was going on a diet. And we always knew when my mom was on a diet because things were getting cleared out of our house and we weren't eating certain ways, or there was slim fast shakes and all these different things in our house. And so it was like this unspoken thing that when you wanted to feel good, you needed to go on a diet. And that was kind of the culture that I was raised in. And I was watching her consistently critiquing her body. And I grew up with that. And now I was watching women around my age do very similar things. And I think it started, as we were growing up. And then it was just kind of this thing, right? As you're in your teens into your young 20s, it's the magazines telling you which diet, or this is what this celebrity did, or this or that. And no one was talking about how important it is to just prioritize nutrients to make your body feel good. And so we've kind of had this like conditioning for years that we're sitting in. So when I sit with a client, one of the first things I get asked all the time is like, okay, well, what should I eat? How many calories should I be in? What's my meal plan, right? We always want the like do, right? What should I do to do this? Very much so, if we're talking energies, right? I'm in the masculine energy. How do I need to do, how do I need to tune into my body? So one of the first things that I work with people on is we're just going to get back in touch with what it feels like to be hungry and what it feels like to be full again, because a lot of us have lost touch with that. We have no idea what hunger actually feels like. It's actually a very uncomfortable feeling for a lot of people. So I actually make them get really uncomfortable in the beginning, and I need you to feel hungry. I need you to know what that truly feels like in your body so we can start to tune back into that. And it's a very difficult process in the beginning because it's a lot of conscious work. And people are coming into these things expecting the detailed diet and the plan. And we're spending a lot of time just doing the conscious things and tuning into how do you want to feel in your day? Now I want you to assess your habits that you have during the day. Are they aligning with how you want to feel? Because 99% of the time when I'm meeting with somebody, the nutrition, the knowing what we need to do, we all know that we need to eat vegetables, right? Like we all know that protein's probably important and we should probably eat an avocado here and there, right? But we probably don't realize how much the things that we're doing in the day are impacting the choices that we're making. So we spend a lot of time working through that.
Yes. You and I have had many conversations about that. And in the last few years, me diving more into my nutrition and movement game, I think the biggest struggle for me has been the unlearning. Like my biggest fear is so counterintuitive to what we've been taught as women. And then let's make this a full circle moment, because I'm going back to how we started this conversation, and I'm writing down, I'm looking at my notes that I was taking. I just needed somebody. I'm doing this on my own. And how you were back into that hospital room, right? Mm-hmm. And you are like, I want to trust my body. I want to trust my body. Like, I want to get into my body. I want this to be a beautiful process. It's gonna hurt. There's gonna be pain, but it's natural. And how can I get aligned with that? And the self-advocacy that you need to have, and the discernment and the assertiveness to say, nope, this is what I need.
Yep.
And looking at a professional and saying, I trust my body over your wisdom right now, like over your knowledge. Sorry. I trust my body's wisdom over your knowledge. How can we co-create this experience together? And what you're talking about right now it's a full circle moment, whether it's with our body and how we're nurturing our body, whether it's our hormones, whether it's our relationships. You have to get emotionally uncomfortable and learn how to feel again. But yeah, I don't know why. It just, when you said I'm doing this on my own, I feel like women often feel very alone in their bodies, on any aspect of that journey.
Yeah. And when I look back at it, a lot of why I felt alone was because I didn't trust myself, and I didn't feel in tune with myself, and I didn't know myself enough to advocate for what I needed. And when you're confident in knowing what you need, and you're comfortable with where you're at and the choices that you're making, it's a lot easier to advocate for yourself and say like, no, that doesn't work for me. Or actually, I feel good when I do this. But I've also found, especially in nutrition, it changes the conversation from the diet of like, oh, I can't eat that, or I can't do this, or I can't go have drinks, to I don't want to do that because that doesn't make me feel good in my skin. Yeah. And it takes away this restrictive mindset that we can come in with a lot of different places in our life, especially nutrition. And it puts you back into the driver's seat of any choice that you're making. But obviously I work in health and nutrition, so more in that too.
Love it. Brooke, you and I could talk forever. And we are recording this on a Saturday morning. I'm in the dark, and you're in a robe from what I hear.
I haven't even brushed my teeth yet this morning.
So. I love this. This is life. And I spill eggs on my sweater this morning, and this is reality. This is reality. So, Brooke, where can people find you? I know you are pretty active on Instagram and you have a podcast. So, let everyone know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I just launched a podcast called The Power of a Woman. And Instagram, I'm probably on way more than I should be. It's Brooke Rozzi. And then my website is also brookerozzi.com. So any of those avenues are a great place to find me.
Awesome. Can you spell out the Instagram so that they know exactly where to get you?
BROOKEROZZIE.
Perfect. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Or you can text the word Facebook to 313-710-5199. That's 313-710-5199. It's a U.S. phone number and text message rates will apply. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.